On this episode of Always a Raven, I'm joined by Shane Rapp, class of 2008. From shin guards to spreadsheets, Shane shares his journey from the soccer field to a leader in the education field. His story is one of faith and leadership rooted in ora et labora, pray and work. Whether it's a halftime speech or a faculty meeting, Shane shows how community, humility, and a good sense of humor can change lives.
Yeah, my sophomore year really had a good RA, actually, who is now Brother Levin up at the Abbey, who helped me. I would never compliment him publicly.
Right.
Had a real influence on in starting to take my faith more seriously. And yeah, I experienced just kind of a transformation over the next couple years.
Welcome to Always a Raven, a Benedictine College podcast that goes far beyond the brick streets of Atchison, Kansas. Hosted by Janelle Menz, Always a Raven offers a unique glimpse into ravens from all generations. From where are they now to remember when, these conversations share career triumphs and personal milestones. So whether you are an alum looking to reconnect, a prospective student, or simply curious about what makes Benedictine College so special, join us and discover the enduring power of Benedictine College.
I'm so excited today to have Dr. Shane Rapp join us. Shane graduated from Benedictine in 2008 and is the principal of St. James Academy in the KC area, and he lives there with his wife and kids. Thank you so much for being here, Shane.
Thanks for having me, Janelle.
Well, you're originally from St. Louis, right?
Yes.
Okay.
St. Louis, born and raised there, and yeah, it was only going to Benedictine and meeting my wife up there that took me away from it. So,
well, it's funny. I was talking to Larry Wilcox a couple months ago, and he's from that area too. And I just feel like from the beginning, it feels like Benedictine has just had this pull from St. Louis that is just so true and so lasting and so rooted for whatever reason. A lot of good priests over there or something. But what brought you to Benedictine? Did you know somebody, or what was that connection?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I really didn't know anybody. I was the only person from my high school to go to Benedictine. I didn't really know anybody else going until I actually got on campus, and the guy next door to me happened to be a former club soccer teammate. So I had one familiar face once I got there, but no, I can only say God's providence. I really only had two main goals when I was looking at colleges, which was I wanted to get 3 to 5 hours away from home, and I wanted to play soccer. Those were the things I cared about at the time. And, you mentioned that St. Louis connection. I think there was a strong St. Louis connection, particularly when it came to the soccer program. And John Casey, actually, who was longtime coach and, has things in the soccer program named after him, was the director of the club I played for in St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't know him at all, but my dad did. My dad was a high school soccer coach. And so as we were going through the college process, he just kind of mentioned, check out Benedictine College. And of course, I had to say, where's that? And, but started looking and eventually applied to 3 different schools. And, Benedictine just ended up being the one that I picked, and all my reasons were bad. They were bad reasons.
Well, not as an 18-year-old though. Like you know what I mean? Like in reality, like that's pretty okay. In my book, like I came here because I'm from Northeast Iowa originally, and I just wanted to get out of the town I was in. And that was my reason. So that's probably not a great reason either. But, once you're here and once you walk around on campus, you're like, there's something that just pulls you in deeper. So it really doesn't matter what got you here in the first place. So, okay, you're here. It's early 2000s. Talk a little bit about the 4 years. And I know you did rugby and you met your wife. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I first came to Benedictine, like I said, kind of wanted to play soccer. I walked onto the program, knew a couple of guys there. That was really kind of my first landing spot. Some of my best friends at the time were guys in the soccer program like Pat Helfrich and Scott Lauder and some guys that were also from St. Louis. Met some of my people who ended up being lifelong friends in the girls program, Sarah Fagoni, now Sarah Lugo, Trisha Hutchison, now Trisha Helms. Who played girls soccer. So that was kind of like my home at first. And, like you said, you get on campus and you just kind of fall in love with it. Yeah, I really had a good time at Benedictine, enjoyed my experience. But it was really kind of my sophomore year that I think the mission of Benedictine became important to me. I still remember coming up for the presidential scholarship weekend, and in the interview they asked, how important is the Catholic identity of Benedictine to you? And I remember saying, not really.
Oh, seriously?
Wrong answer. Like, even if that's what I meant, what a bad
Right.
answer. And I go, yeah, it's the only Catholic school I applied to. I haven't really thought about it,
So you
So
got the
again,
scholarship. Is that what you're going to say
no,
next?
I did not. I did not. But yeah. So thinking back on that, yeah, but God brought me there, and I think my sophomore year really had a good RA actually, who is now Brother Levin up at the Abbey, who helped me. I would never compliment him publicly.
Right.
Had a real influence on in starting to take my faith more seriously. And yeah, I experienced just kind of a transformation over the next couple of years in what I wanted out of life and what was important to me. And again, that soccer was important. You mentioned rugby. Like, I made some of the best friends that I've ever had, and still have to this day through that program. So I had a blast. I was blessed more than I deserve in what I got to do while on campus, but also in what God did in my life through the people there. So yeah, it was an amazing experience for sure.
I think Brother Levin would echo your probably not the right answer, because I think he encountered that through his time at Benedictine too, and his transformation story, and just how how God touched him in so many ways. I think is, for us that were in college with him, we saw that happen, and it's really beautiful. And it's been cool to be back on campus and chat with him, and just hear how life evolves. And so for you, talk about that. Like, obviously you met Megan here, your wife, and you graduate, and then, life happens from that. And I mean, I know there's a lot between 2008 and now. So maybe just talk about those first couple years, and as you were navigating, I know you got your master's and your PhD. So talk about that a little bit, and how maybe you saw Benedictine show up as you were kind of spreading your wings.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, you think back, and there's just these little moments that completely change the trajectory of your life. So senior year, I was dating Megan at the time. That's a story for another day, but I asked her out 6 times before she finally said yes to me. So finally started dating senior year, and I was student teaching at Leavenworth High School, and they had, again, soccer was important to me. They had a head coach soccer opening there and an English teacher opening, which is what I was doing at the time. And so I started filling out an application for Leavenworth, because things were pretty serious with Megan, and think, oh well, there's no way she's going to St. Louis. So and Dr. Henderson, who I think just retired last year, Diane Henderson, was one of my education professors, and she just said, there's this new high school in Kansas City called St. James that I think would be a great fit for you. I was like, okay. So I looked it up online and filled out an application, and ended up, as we kind of went through graduation, and again, knowing, Megan's kind of this, I want to keep this going, got an opportunity, got a job offer at St. James, and accepted it. And my mom didn't love that. I remember calling her and telling her I got a job, and she said, well, it's going to be an awful long commute from St. Louis every day. And yeah, sorry, Mom, I'm gonna have to move to KC. But so I've been here for 17 years now, and
Holy cow!
9 as principal. And Megan has she worked in Blue Valley as a special educator for a while, and then stayed home after we had our 3rd kid, and now works part-time at the school where our kids go. But yeah, we've got 5 beautiful kids who are driving us crazy, and we're just really blessed. But yeah, I think one of the things that Benedictine gave us are a lot of our closest friends. I think some of the godparents of our kids, almost all of the godparents of our kids are either Benedictine friends or St. James friends, so
that's amazing.
Yeah, I think that it's very much still a part of our life, and a part of our story. But it doesn't seem like it's been, as long as it has since leaving. But I think that's kind of been my trajectory in leaving after leaving Benedictine.
So really, you kind of were on the ground level of St. James building all that it is today. Is that right?
Yeah, the year I came and why I got the job is they hired any Catholic with a pulse who applied
Oh,
because because it was only in its third year when I applied, the fourth year when I
yeah.
started. So it started with just freshmen in 2005, and
Oh,
then
wow.
when I came in 2008, those freshmen were seniors. It was the first year that they had all four classes in the building, and I think they hired 24 teachers that year because the school was basically doubling in size every year. So
Yeah.
yeah, so been able to watch its transformation, and yeah, I think it's been another one of those graces of God, that not only what St. James has meant to me, but the way that Benedictine has shaped St. James in a lot of ways. That it's
Sure.
a
Sure.
it actually is like a little bit of a cliche that
Hmm.
how many of our teachers come from
Yeah.
Benedictine or have Benedictine roots, and so the students give us trouble about that sometimes. But yeah, it's definitely been a beautiful, kind of mutually beneficial relationship of seeing
Yeah.
all of our students who go up there and have great
Hmm.
experience, and all the teachers that come back to us from Benedictine's education program. So that's been fun to watch in the growth of St. James, to also see, the Benedictine influence in there as well.
I bet, and I bet there's so many more commonalities and just things that flow from both, just especially with like the community faith and scholarship aspect, and just it's probably not hard to connect the dots, just even outside of just like the personnel and all of that, but just from the nuances, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's we're all in the same mission field.
Mm-hmm.
We're all working towards the same thing, which is building up God's kingdom, and that's our goal here at St. James, is passing on the faith to the next generation. And Benedictine wanting to transform culture in America is like, we're working together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the gift that I think one of the main commonalities that I see is um, the leadership trusts God. I
Mm-hmm.
experienced that
Mm-hmm.
President Menace, Benedictine. I was there when he came to Benedictine.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, there was great leadership before, but obviously what he has done is just remarkable, and to get to
Right.
watch it happen. But it's his faith and his trust in Mary and putting everything in her hands. And I've gotten to see the same thing here at St. James with our president Andy Talicki, our vice president Debbie Niermeyer, are people who just they just trust God, and they
Mm-hmm.
allow him to work. And
Yeah.
so I've just been super blessed to get to just kind of walk in the footsteps of great leaders like President Menace or Andy
Yeah.
and here. And that's, I think, where that commonality or that overlap between, the culture that Benedictine has, the culture that St.
Sure.
James has, it's because we're both working towards the same thing,
Sure.
and God's using both places for his purposes.
What I think is awesome about that, when it's the forefront of leadership and all those who kind of fall in step, is that it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it does mean that we know it's bigger than us, and we trust that we can get through any of those challenges that come our way. COVID, and it is obviously a elephant in the room example, but
Mhm.
there's plenty through the history of Benedictine, and even just in the 20 years that Menace has been in charge
Mhm.
here. Could you kind of maybe expand on that and examples that you've experienced at St. James?
Yeah, actually, even as you were talking, there were some Benedictine examples that popped in my head of just like stories that, or things people said that I think have influenced me tremendously in my leadership at St. James. I remember hearing about Father Meinrad having a daily, or maybe it was weekly, but I remember it as daily holy hour for the college all the way through like the 90s and times when it was
Mm-hmm.
not going as well as it is today, and
Yeah.
inviting people to that, and really like that time spent in prayer in front of the Eucharist, how pivotal that was,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of renaissance that Benedictine's experiencing now over the last 20 years. It was fed by the prayer of the monks
Mm-hmm.
and the sisters and the people who, founded Benedictine. I remember little stories like my RD sophomore year, Mark Bartek. just saying like, this is me, this is my wife. He was introducing himself to the dorm, and he's like, and our goal is to be saints. That's what we want to do. And I'm like, can you do that? Like, do
That's a
people?
lot of, that's a lot of confidence. Like, but that's amazing. I love that he was just like putting it out there.
Yeah. And I think that kind of boldness and trusting
Yeah.
God is the same kind of thing that I've experienced here from some of those people I mentioned, from other, there's so many people at St. James that have shown that, I think, to me, modeled that for me, taught it to me. Yeah, I can see how those, like, it speaks to my heart. It spoke to my heart when I experienced it Benedictine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I think that's why I've landed here and been here 17 years with 2 at home. I'm probably, 16 more. It's part of what's made it a special place. So yeah, I can see that here in those people, the same boldness, the same, just being convinced to their core that this mission is not about a great school. It's that's a byproduct, hopefully. The mission is doing God's will.
I listened to, I stumbled upon your talk that you gave at Notre Dame. It was about 10 months ago, maybe a year ago. And I mean, you said it, you said a lot, which was all great. But the one thing that you said was, you positioned to the audience, why did you get an education? And, you're like, obviously to make a difference. That's what everybody says. But you said, we're, make disciples. That's what we're called to do. Yeah. And, it's kind of that same boldness and confidence as Mark Bartek had when he said to be a saint. Like that's what we're striving for. And we all have to strive for that internally, but then externally to convey that to others, really to make disciples and go and do what we're, called to do. And it might be hard to figure that out in the road to get there, but that's why you're in your role, Shane, to help those students figure that out. So do you have any examples maybe from interactions with students, or just, I mean, I'm sure you have more than enough stories over the past 17 years of like an example of how you really leaned on that to get through a situation?
Man, yeah, the best, I mean, I would say the three best things about my job are we have daily mass on campus. So I get to go to mass on the clock, which is awesome. Yeah. People I work with are incredible. I've talked about that a little bit, but yeah, some of the things I've experienced with kids are really, they've transformed me. They've shaped parent. They shape how I, and not just like negative, like I don't want my kid to end up like that, so I parent differently. No, like they also, like things that I've seen kids do or ways that I've seen parents at St. James interact with their kids, like it makes me want that for myself. And I think it has given me there have been so many little moments that have just shaped me. I'll throw a couple out there, like just the last couple of years, we've got, actually, he's a Benedictine now. George Bright is a student at Benedictine, big football player. His brother's a football player here too. And, like there was this moment where his parents started going to daily mass with him. George was already going to mass, I think. And his parents started going, then his brother came as a freshman, they were going. And, I just talked to his dad one day of like, just seeing you guys make that effort to come here and do that as like, it just makes me want that for my family. And for it to be, the biggest football player on our team and, like a stud athlete kind of guy, it sends a message to other people. It has been both a real heavy burden, but also a real blessing in some ways to go through some suffering as a school. In my early years at St. James, we had a student named Connor McCullough who passed away from a brain tumor. And I mean, it was a tremendous grace for me to watch a family suffer with hope, the loss of their son, and to watch him go through a trial that I can't even imagine with a faith that really transformed, I think, almost everybody who knew Connor. And I taught his older brother, Clint, at the time when Connor passed, and seeing how he carried that cross. I mean, like seeing what God's grace does for a 15-year-old with brain cancer, or his 17-year-old brother, or, like those are experiences that have really shaped my heart and my belief that God's grace is real, that
Absolutely.
it's not just like fluff. It's
Right.
a real thing that really changes
Yeah.
the way people see the world and the way they're able to live.
And
And
don't
so,
you think that it's affected how you lead?
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it just sets your priorities differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm when you see that, or we had a student a couple years ago who passed away on the first day of school, passed away in a car accident, walking with her family through that, like, or even less maybe extreme examples of, the mental health crisis that our youth are facing,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing
Yeah.
how that's changed over 17 years and seeing what some of these kids and families go through. I mean, it just really reaffirms that what people need is not, they don't need great grades. They don't need
Right. Right.
a great scholarship. They don't even need a great school like St. James or Benedictine. They need
Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
Right.
They
Right.
need grace and the hope that he offers. And when
Mm-hmm.
you see people live into that, like these families, who have suffered loss and stay faithful, these kids who are going through just tremendous difficulties that you and I probably didn't need to deal with, because when I got on Facebook, I had to have a Benedictine email address.
Right.
It was only for college students at the time, like all those things,
Right.
like
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
that's changed in such a short period of time. But it reaffirms to me that, like, keeping first things first is my job. That's my
Mm-hmm.
job. And the first thing is putting them in relationship with Jesus,
Absolutely.
and everything else falls into place. It's not that the grades and the school and the scholarship, all those things are
Yeah.
important. They're just not
Right.
the most important. And
Yeah, it's a byproduct of having your priorities in line. It
yeah,
really is. If you've it's hard to, even my husband, like it's hard to, we're all on our own faith journey, and and I'm very adamant with my husband, God first, then family, then work, etc.
mhm,
And he gets it in concept, but in practice it's hard for him, because he's like, no, family first, like we got to
yeah,
take care of each other. I'm like, no, dear, like we're not arguing about this by any
yeah,
means,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like it's just, we all have to experience that intrinsic feeling in us, I think, to be able to then extend it outward. And
yeah.
it takes everybody a different, you're a product of your environment. So I think
Mhm.
just whether it's past, present, or future, like we digest things accordingly. And so, but we all have to show up for these other people. So
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
being with those students and those families
mhm,
gave them strength, probably more than they could ever articulate to you, to be able to continue forward. And if we're not there for each other, then we're really not doing what we've been called to do, which is the bones, of really what Benedictine is, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think about like, you could not have an easier path to being a disciple of Jesus than I had, which was like my parents, amazing, my siblings, amazing. They gave me a Catholic education, they got me to church. And then I went to Benedictine and saw in a new way the faith lived. And then I landed in this place where I'm surrounded by people and families who aren't perfect, but really believe, and they
Yeah.
see transform their lives and transform my own. So, like, yeah, that comes with a responsibility then to share
Hmm.
with others and be like, no, I've seen it, and
Yeah.
I know it's real. And so
Right.
I want you to see it and know it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I learned that at Benedict, and I saw people living that. What the monks did for my life, the witness of their presence on campus, and spiritual direction with Father Bruce. My friendship with Brother Levin as he joined and has stayed in the monastery. And then people like Mark Bartek, people like
Hmm.
some of my friends in the rugby team,
Hmm.
um, professors I had. There are just so many blessings that most people don't get. Most
Right.
people have that experience, and I was very blessed to have that.
What I think is pretty awesome too is that it's, unless your eyes are closed and your heart's closed, it's pretty hard to miss all that it comes from experiencing Benedictine, just not only on campus in our 4 years, but then the fruits of it after, because although small, it's awful mighty, and it extends beyond. And I think not only in people, but in just in different ways at the grocery store, even, like as simple as that, just interactions and how to act as Christ in the world, be in the world, but not of the world mentality really is so true to, I think, not only just the heartbeat of Benedictine. I typically ask at the end, Shane, like, how has Benedictine shown up in your life? An epiphany of sorts. But I really think that's a silly question to ask you, because that's pretty much all we've talked about, which is so amazing. And I think you are a living testament to community, faith, and scholarship. I really do. And I thank you for all you're doing, because a lot of people, and you can't fault them, have hung up their hat in the education system, because it's rough waters.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm blessed to be where I am, and Benedictine shows up all the time, because I'm in a funny part of my life now where people I went to college with are bringing their kids to St. James, and so we're seeing each other again. And no, it gave me, my parents gave me my faith, but I think Benedictine was what helped it become mine.
I'm with you.
My sophomore year there, and what happened after there. So it was just it has transformed my life. It gave me my wife,
right.
Gave me my job. If Diane Henderson hadn't pulled me aside and just said, like, hey, there's this school, I would have never heard of St. I would have never applied, and so it has shown up in the fact that I'm where I am doing what I'm doing. God used Benedictine to keep me from screwing up my life, basically.
The feeling is mutual, that's for darn sure. Hey, thanks for joining us on Always a Raven. New episodes will drop every Tuesday, and you're not going to want to miss any of them, because we've got some pretty amazing guests coming up. They are reigniting the hearts of Ravens throughout all generations, across all industries, and they are incredible. Be sure to like and follow us on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss any episodes. And if you're a new Raven or a potential Raven, be sure to check out our website at benedictine.edu. And remember, once a Raven, always a Raven.